Hello YouTube and welcome to another video. In this one I'm going to be doing some work on the 1100 exhaust that is getting swapped into the X2. In one of my previous videos I took the water jacket off of this, partly to reduce some weight and partly because I needed some clearance. That left me with one hole that I broke in it accidentally and some cut marks that are undesirable. Also, the mounts are not quite as well supported as they used to be because they were attached to the outer jacket itself. So I'm going to grind away a bunch of material, try to build up some support around those areas, and patch this hole. So that's what this video is going to be about. I know what I can do. I can get a tiny drill bit. I'm sure I'll edit out all the methods that I attempted to get this corner piece out here. Yep. There we go. I think I'm going to set this aside now. I've been playing with this a little bit today, but it's mostly just for therapeutic reasons. There's no practical reason for me to be doing this with hand tools. I am going to be cutting back to the seam on this side. And then on the back side of this mount, I'm going to bridge down to here with a piece of aluminum and welding it in. And then the same thing on this mount. I'm actually going to cut away to that seam. It is currently 12:43 a.m. and I'm not completely finished with this, but I got a bunch of work done to it. You can see I removed a bunch of material and tidied this up. I still have to sand it. And around this area as well, I removed a bunch of material around there. The area where that mount is attached is very narrow. So the way they used to do it is this side was attached to the outer jacket and this piece was attached to the inner and outer jacket. I think this one is okay, other than the fact that when I was cutting it open, I cut through here a little bit. So I'm going to weld up that saw cut, and then obviously that needs to be patched. I still have the part that came off of there, so that should make it fairly easy to reattach. Alright, jet ski fans, I'm not really sure if you guys find this project interesting or not, but I've got to do a little bit more to the ZXi 1100 or the Kawasaki 1100 exhaust. I'm going to fill up this gap with some weld. I said in a previous video that I was going to use a piece of aluminum to fill the gap and then weld it in, but I think just to get practice welding, I'm going to try to fill the whole area up with just a weld bead. I think the tricky part about doing this is going to be getting down into that crack, but if I raise the frequency of the welder up some, then maybe that will do it, and maybe I don't really know. I haven't welded enough to know, so I guess this is a good test, a good practice of yeah, what the welder can do. First things first, I'm going to see if I'm even close in heat range. That was 75 amps. I jumped up to 85 because it didn't even seem to be close to enough heat. Nope, not enough heat. Alright, I'm now at 94 amps. And I'm going to give this a blast and see what I can do. That actually could have gone a whole lot worse. The metal in this area is quite dirty. I should have cleaned it up a bit more. I'm gonna keep trying just to see if I can make it work, but I might have to grind away some material. It's pretty bad right at the start here. Not as good as I had hoped, but I think it's gonna work. All right. That actually went pretty well. I was hoping to keep the line further towards the mount, but yeah, what do you expect for a beginner? Okay, something wrong here, something wrong with my tungsten. I think I might have, that is bad, what the hell? Still kind of welding like garbage. It's like it starts off good, it seems to be okay, and then all of a sudden it just goes real nasty. Did it again, it keeps shutting off. The weld is going good, except that it keeps shutting off on me. I was right at the end of the weld, but I didn't stop it welding, it stopped itself. I'm only at 90 amps, so it's not like I'm pushing it over its duty cycle or anything. Alright, it's going pretty well, except that my welder started doing this new thing where it shuts off randomly. Maybe it's something I'm doing, I don't know, but yeah, this is actually going pretty well. I'm building it up. It's looking like a weld bead sort of, and it's gonna meet up where I want it to meet up, so I might actually start adding some to this side just so that I can get in there before I block up the gap. Actually, that is what I'm going to do next. I'm going to try to get some weld on here just so that if I close this gap anymore, it's going to be hard to get the arc in there. Talking like I know what I'm talking about, but yeah. Once again, it shut off by itself. I did not shut it off. It's working though. I got the bead down in there a little bit. There's 112. I think there's something wrong with my welder. Said every new welder ever. Alright, I'm going to regrind the tungsten because that's more likely the truth, is that I probably dipped it and didn't notice. This is bullshit. Gotta be something wrong with my welder. What I'm trying to do basically is preheat this gap. So I'm working my way along here, and it just, the arc starts jumping all around and it starts making this real weird oxidized gummy, it's like slag. Like if you ever cast aluminum, it's like slag building up on the top of the aluminum. Crank the amperage down some. No, I'm going to leave it there, even though it's going to be a bit too much, because it seems to have problems at this amperage or higher. And it shut off. Yeah, I'm going to have to contact Everlast. So I've been spending the last few days trying to get my welder working again because my welder stopped working. Ended up that I had bad gas and some other problem. I've switched over to using the foot pedal, and that has taken care of some of the problems. I have finished this repair up off camera. As you can see, it went pretty well. Yeah, I'm going to get to cutting away the excess material around this, and then we'll weld it back in place. Every single piece of equipment that I have is failing on me. My air compressor failed the other day when I was on my way out to do an unboxing. My camera's been acting up as per usual. My welder stopped working. The supercharger is broken. Yeah, anyway, enough complaining, Joel. Just get to doing something. Make a video, for God's sake. Oh, this is gonna work. It's gonna work perfect. I'm glad I thought of this. All right, that's gonna do it. I'm gonna shut it off there. So what I'm gonna do is tap this down into place as much as I can, and then spray some cleaner on it, get the air compressor going, blow it off, make sure I don't have cleaner jammed in there, and then yeah, fire up the welder and see what I can do. You guys will probably have noticed, no you wouldn't because I didn't show a clip, I was using this helmet. This is BJ's helmet, and the reason why I'm using that is because mine acts up even more when I'm using the foot pedal, because it starts off at very low amperage, and then when you taper off, it tapers off to very low amperage, which means that my helmet does not trigger, or it stops working. And I was spending a lot of time getting my eyes flashed. So the helmet only has 2 sensors, and the sensors are located here and here, and that's kind of a problem because of the line of sight and stuff. This old helmet has the sensors located at the bottom, very close to the viewing screen, and I think they're less prone to getting blocked or to getting shadowed. And so that helmet works a whole lot better. I'm going to try mine just because I haven't tried it using very high amperage. So I've got the welder set to 126 amps right now. Whoa, okay. The exhaust moved, but other than that it worked pretty well. Whoa, I got one tack in place. Okay, that one went a whole lot better. Hopefully there's enough light up there that you guys can see that. I got it tacked in place. Yeah, I'm just going to do whatever feels right here. I'm going to try to melt some of this top stuff down into the bottom part. That went really well. I had to use one dab of filler, but for the most part I'm just using the existing material from the water jacket part that's still connected, and I was able to kind of flow that back into the pipe. It's going way better than I thought it would. Kind of curious to see what it looks like once I get it all ground back down, but looking good so far. Helmet's not turning on. Okay, time to change helmets. Fucking thing. Oh my god. Alright. Okay, I'll show you guys what I've done. Pretty good, all things considered, I think. I'm now going to take my flap disc, maybe a file, and take most of that material off. And if I have any divots or anything, then I'll fill them in. I'm kind of expecting to see some divots, but who knows? Completely disappeared. I don't know about you guys, but I am pretty pleased with that. I can feel a little tiny step on the inside, but I am more than pleased with that. That is way better than I expected. I don't know which repairs I actually got on camera, so this is a grinder disc cut that went a little bit too deep. I have another one of those over here, which I guess I got jammed in the vise, and so yeah, I still got to clean up around that. This one here also has to be cleaned up, but it's the same deal. I cut too deep with the grinder. And then this is basically, I filled a huge gap in between the mount and the exhaust itself. And I think I'm going to leave that how it is. The OCD part of me wants to grind it down and make it look all pretty, but some of my first welds, so I think I will leave that as it is, and it will stand as a reminder how my welds used to look. Hopefully someday I'll get good at it. This little hole here, I partly left it there and partly couldn't close it. Because this is hollow inside, it builds up pressure when you weld, and it makes it almost impossible to seal it up. So I was going to put another hole here and cover that up, but that hole's not hurting anything, so I'll just leave it there. I'm quite sure that I already mentioned it in this video, but I've had quite the week. I found out that my supercharger wasn't remanufactured. Then I found out that it does matter which direction you rotate it. And so I've had to completely redesign the manifold, and I'm going to have to run the supercharger in the other direction, which means that I'm very likely going to be running it off of the flywheel instead of off of the coupler. Some of you guys will probably be happy about that, but it did set me back about 2 weeks, and I might have to buy new material for the manifold. I'm hoping to be able to use a lot of the parts that I've already built, but it is a possibility that I will have to scrap that idea and start over from scratch. The 1100 cylinders, when I was boring them out, I ran into a bit of a snag, which is kind of a secret. You guys might find out about that in the future. Then my welder quit in the middle of this project, and I had to spend 3 days with customer service trying to get it figured out. Turned out that I had a bad bottle of argon gas, which is quite a rare thing. Not only was it bad argon gas, but my welder has a problem as well. That's why I am now using the foot pedal. The foot pedal seems to take care of the majority of the issue, although it still is acting up a little bit. The reason why I'm telling you guys all of these excuses is because the next thing that I'm going to say is probably going to upset some of you, but yeah, deal with it. I know a lot of you were probably hoping that the 1100 engine was going to get a whole bunch of Joel modifications, and at some point it definitely will. I will be doing head work and porting work and case porting and all sorts of other things, but I am quite pressed for time. I've got the exhaust build for the 650. I've got the supercharger going on this 650. I've got the 1100 that actually has to get into an X2 chassis, and I still don't know if I'm going to get another hull or not. So the 1100 engine is going to get built and put into the X2, and then at some time in the future I will be doing all sorts of modifications to it. Those plans might change if my luck turns around and everything works out for me and I have more time before spring. It is quite possible that I will pull the 1100 apart, do a bunch of porting, do a bunch of case porting, bump up the compression and do some stuff like that. But I also think that it would be quite interesting if we did some sort of back-to-back testing. It's quite likely that I'm not going to put this engine in and it's going to work perfect right off the get-go. So the less things that I have to scratch my head about once I get it in there, the better. If I do a whole bunch of porting work and exhaust work and ignition work and wiring and carb work and all this stuff, and it stops working properly on me when I put it in the water, I won't know which one of those things to look for. or to look at. But if I just put a basically stock engine into the X2 and get it running, if I get it running fairly well, then I can do things to it in a somewhat organized fashion where I do some porting work, go and test it, make sure that the porting work works out fine, then do some compression work, so on and so forth. That will add an interesting aspect to the whole build as well, because then I'll be able to do some comparisons, both tell you guys how it feels different, and maybe actually do some speed runs and figure out how much do you get from doing a port job. So that was a long rant. I hope you guys aren't too disappointed about that. Again, it might change. I change my mind quite frequently, and I really would love to do some porting on it. But yeah, I only have so much time, and I've got a lot of stuff to do. Hopefully one of my next videos will be some more work on the supercharger project. I have pretty much decided that I'm going to take the drive off of the flywheel, and because I'm only going to be running in fresh water, I think actually what I'm going to do is actually cut a bunch out of the flywheel cover and just run a pulley out through the cover. I need some of the cover remaining because that supports the starter bendix, so I won't be able to remove the whole cover or cut the whole cover off. But I've got a little bit of a plan in my head. I hope I don't sound too much like a downer. I am quite excited about all of the builds that are going on. It's just been a little bit much of a week. So I hope you guys are all taking care of yourself and doing well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.